Yeah, you made that's
Hi, everybody. It's Gwenda Lambert here and Heather Lacey. Welcome, Heather. And we're here today for Just Talking. And today I'm going to start with this is the 5th anniversary of my mom's death. I like to call it a death anniversary, like an anniversary. Um, and the one thing that I really wanted to touch on today was I've had a rough couple of weeks. There's a couple of days where my STIRBs, what we call in the grief recovery method, where my STIRBs kicked in. I couldn't get up off the couch. I couldn't get myself going. But the other part of this is the fact that there's always something different that comes up, because when we're ready for emotions to rise, they come to the top. And the difference with, I mean, we will touch on, I really wish I had the grief recovery method 10 years ago to make this whole process easier and in a proactive way. But it's beautiful how the grief is morphing, how the memories of my mother and my relationship change. The softening of once was such a challenging relationship. It changed and shifts. But it's like recently, I think it's not even 6 months ago, they came up with this thing, complex grief, and labeling it that if there's anything after 5 years, it's somehow that this is a problem and it's not normal. And what I want to say is that's garbage. That's garbage, total garbage. We all have, you can have a complex relationship. You maybe have a bunch of different layers in that relationship. And fortunately or unfortunately, when it comes to death or death on top of something like divorce, and you can start giving yourself permission to feel what you need to feel instead of just getting angry for no reason or getting sad for no reason. When you can actually sit in that and go, oh, okay, where's this going to? That's when things actually move and shift. And if you have layers in your relationship, it can take years to get through it. And grief is never like, oh, by next week, if you're not finished, like a project, if you're not finished in the next 3 months, that's a problem. You're broken. You're not good. I'm here to say horse hockey. What about you, Heather?
I agree with you. In a slightly similar but slightly different fashion. I think that applies to any relationship. One of the things we talk about with the grief recovery method is that grief is a normal and natural reaction to loss. And grief doesn't go away. The goal of the grief recovery program is not to make grief go away. It's to change your relationship to the grief and to change your relationship to not to the grief, change your relationship to the loss so that your grief isn't painful. I think if your grief is, 5, 10 years out and you're still, in the depths of despair and you're still having a, really hard time functioning, you need to seek some help and you need to do something. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you per se, but you need some help to get through it. But it, grief continues, and grief continually happens throughout your life, and grief continues from whatever relationship all the way through death or not, even if it's just the end of a friendship, the end of you can still grieve that relationship. It's just that you're not feeling the pain side of it. My grandmother died when I was 9, just before I turned 10. I'm 51. I still grieve. I still miss her. I still have very small amount of memories, but I still have those moments where I'm like, I remember this. And I'm still sad she's gone, but I'm not, I'm not feeling that, knife to the heart kind of pain. I can have my moment of, I wish she was here. And I can move through that and, celebrate the fact that I had her in my life for the time that I did, right? But it's like, that's a grief that has been with me for 40 years, right? Like that's it's not going to go away just magically because you're not the here anymore, or or you're past that magical 5-year mark or whatever. It's going to continue and exist for the rest of my life. It's how your relationship with that grief and with that loss, how that grief shows up, whether that grief shows up as something that's debilitating, or whether that grief shows up as something that allows you to have a moment of sadness perhaps, but just to rejoice and celebrate the person, the fact that they were in your life. And again, not just necessarily a death, but the ending of anything, right? That loss of anything. We've talked about that many times. Grief is not just because of a death, right? And I think that grief continues all the time. It's just your relationship and reaction to it that changes.
Oh, exactly. And that is a perfect segue into I mean, how I think, because I just saw this it's a show called Mammals, and it's got James Corden on it. And that was just released. It's Netflix or one of those. And I watched the first, and the thing that I love about what's going on in the world right now is that people are talking about stillbirth. They're talking about the loss of children, miscarriages, and how they affected their lives. That is a loss. That is a being that was part of your life, and not even to getting into the politics of it, because the fact is that was part of your life, to plan for this child, and to lose a child in that manner is just, it's traumatic. And with trauma, there's always grief. With grief, there's not necessarily always trauma. So here's the situation, and here's my challenge, and why I wish I had gotten the grief recovery method 20 years ago. James Corden talks about what he is the 7 stages of grief. And there's anger, denial, and it's like this, there is not stages of grief. There is grief. And how grief is different than even the spiritual aspect of, like, let those emotions flow through you, is you have to take the time to be aware of what that emotion is, so that you can let it flow through you. So, as we would say, so that you can complete it. So the challenge with me here is that we've just got somebody, a famous person, involved in something that's got some dark humor in there, and I'm not going to get into the rest of the story, but you've just provided, you've solidified in whoever watches that there's these stages of grief. So this gets back into what is normal. Well, it's normal to miss people or things or habits, or, that's one of the reasons that we talk about with addictions. When you give up smoking, when I gave up smoking, everybody in my family smoked. Everybody. Yeah. So what that means is that, when we don't have smoking in restaurants, I'm sitting at the table and my whole family goes out to smoke. I know, and this doesn't make logical sense, that when I give up smoking, I'm giving up that connection to my family. You may not think it makes sense, but oh boy, does it ever, because I'm still that outsider. I'm still that person at this point where there's a choice that I've made that has consequences in our lives. So the thing is here, when it comes to things like this movie and talking about the stages of death, you can go, well, I just feel really, really sad all the time. Well, that may be all that you'll feel. Say you have, getting back to this show, there's, this is an unborn child. Well, there's a relationship between the parents. Then there's, oh my God, how could this happen to me? Oh my God, why our child? And say something else happens that puts another level of trauma or drama on top of that relationship. I look at my mother, the first, there was quite a period of time there where we didn't, to say that we didn't see eye to eye is an understatement. So through my grief, taking 5 years, some of it is just getting rid of that traumatic stuff and being able to process that. And then it's getting into, okay, oh, my mom, just my mom. Well, not all moms are going to be perfect. They're not going to say the right thing at the right time all the time. And then, so there's also different layers of our own energetic healing and our own ability to process those emotions. So if there are a bunch of different emotions, even if it's thinking that, oh, my mom was perfect and I'm never going to measure up, there's still a whole bunch of stuff that you need to get out of the way of that relationship. And it will come when you're ready, which is why, again, I wish I had this, because it's such a structure to be able to look at everything and understand that when we have a relationship, it's a whole aspect, right? And to not look at things in such black and white and good and bad and broken and healthy. And I wish life was that clean, but it's not. What do you think, Heather?
Well, I don't wish life was that clean. I really don't. And it's not that clean. It never is. And I think that's one of the biggest traps that we've all fallen into. And I think that's one of the things that's probably caused me the most damage over the years, is that there's this version of normal that you're supposed to be, and that you're not quite normal. I'm not normal. I know I'm not normal. Well, really, I am normal, because there is no normal. There is no definition of normal that applies to all of us, because we will never all be the same, and nor should we ever be. I don't want to be the same as everybody else. There are moments I might want to be the same as everybody else, but really I don't. And really, I don't want everybody else to be like me either, right? I think there's celebration and joy in our individuality. And I think that that's part of that bigger picture with society, is that we've created this version of normal that we're supposed to emulate and be. And I think that causes a lot of damage in so many aspects. And grief in particular is one of those things where it's like, oh, you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that, and after 1 week we do this, and then we do that, and after 2 years then we're supposed to feel like this and we're supposed to feel like that, and after this point in time we're really not supposed to think about them at all. And you don't say that you think about them, because you don't want to tell anybody that you're thinking about them, because you're not supposed to think about them, and that's not normal. So I don't want to be seen as not normal, so I don't want to say anything. I don't want to talk about it, and I'm just going to bury it, and I'm still sad, and I'm still this, and you just push it down, and you push it down, and you push it down, and that just makes it worse, and that just makes you feel worse about everything, not just about that relationship or about that moment. It just makes things worse. And as we know, and as we've talked about, grief doesn't stop, because it's not like you lose one thing in your life and you never lose anything else. You continually get losses, and you continually compound upon them. And if you don't have a way to make that completion, and to move through those emotions, and to sit with those emotions, and to process those emotions in whatever time frame works for you, then you just add to the pushing down and add to the pushing down, until it affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, and you explode, you withdraw, however you end up reacting to it. But it will happen.
Absolutely. And I think I think that's we keep saying it is what it is, but we don't act like it is what it is. So we don't really have acceptance. We don't really have, and I love how you said that sometimes I wish I wanted, that I were normal. And that's really just saying we want to be accepted for who we are. We want to know that if I do say, hey, I'm having a low day today, like I can tell you the last 2 weeks have been hard for me. And I do know because some stuff came up, and it's stuff that I haven't seen before in this light. And I look at that as a transmutation, that it's like my heart is giving up more and more stuff. I think it's beautiful. But I loved how you said, Heather, I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be like everybody else, because that's the joy of having each other. And I guess, you know, a lot of times I just want to be accepted and loved and have somebody hold space for me when I'm not having a good day. You know, I know that when I'm tired, I snap. I haven't been sleeping very well lately, so I get cranky sometimes. God, we're human. We're human. And I think, you know, the greatest part there is we all want to be laughing and smiley all the time. Everybody, you know, it feels much better. But you know, the other side of it is that when we have a good cry, and I don't know if you've ever had this, where something you just feel, whatever, something's processing. It's almost like it's caught in your throat. And maybe you do get tightness in your throat because that's your throat chakra about being able to speak your truth. And then all of a sudden it's like coughing up a fur ball for those of us cat people, you know. And then all of a sudden you have this big, because you're allowing that emotion to come through you. You're not pushing it down. And I think that's really the biggest part about finding a tool that allows us, because I find that sometimes going into a therapeutic setting, which is really talking about this complex grief, which is now a DSM, which is a diagnostic, it's a diagnosis, which to me, that just means, here, give us drugs, numb us out, instead of namaste. Right? Oh, I like that. That's sort of fun, wasn't it? But, you know, that it almost, it gives us permission to not embrace the challenging work of saying, yeah, you know what? My mom hurt my feelings sometimes. Sometimes it was hard being in a relationship with her, or my friend who just ghosted me, or, you know, and really that's the other part too, is hopefully this ghosting stuff, we can have the courage to tell each other how we feel. It's like, this isn't working for me. Okay, it hurts, but at least it allows the other person to do something with that, right? At least it's a closing of a door, not just, oh, what do you mean you left the door open? You know, and I think that's really the interesting part, right? Is if we pathologize this, then that means that somebody else has to help us out of it in a way that may not be healthiest for us. What are your thoughts, Heather?
Well, I think, again, you're putting pathology on something that is normal. And it's just because we've decided that it shouldn't be normal, that it's become this thing that we have to fix. And I think that's the mistake, right? It's that it is normal. Yes, it can be debilitating, and yes, there are points in time where you need to seek outside help for that, for sure. Not to say that there isn't, but I also think that, you know, we also as a society need to accept the fact that, you know, people get sad, and and people have downtime and down days and down weeks, and people need moments where they can just go and scream or cry, or they need moments where they can laugh and smile. Like, you know, we're not just middle of the road emotions. We're up and down and up and down and up and down. And I think we need to be able to allow others to express that, in ways that are hopefully not harmful to them or to anyone else. But you need to be able to express that, because the more we don't get to express those emotions, highs and lows, the more we push those down, then the more they explode out in some kind of inappropriate or harmful manner.
Or our body just says, hey, you're not paying attention to me.
Well, exactly. That's for some people, that's how it comes out, right? Mm-hmm. Some people, it's, you know, they take it out on other people. Sometimes it's their body taking it out on them. So
exactly. I know we're like, okay, we've already, like, we're almost out of time, right? So, and so exactly. So I guess what I'd like to, you know, this is the thing, is that there are tools. This is why the grief recovery method, again, thank you to you, Heather. I'm indebted to you, because even just for my own And this is the last topic that I want to talk about is my mother and I, we had a complex relationship. We had a number of highs and lows. We had different communication styles. We had different focuses. When I can tell you that the greatest compliment my mother gave me was that I've been the most consistent. So in other words, from the time I was this big to now, I've been the most consistent in who I've decided to show up as. To me, that's a huge compliment because we were never going to see eye to eye. But I know that through the grief recovery method, after she died, I was able to get so much clearer on what was clogging up our relationship. And that's why when I talk about the grief recovery method, I like it to be a proactive thing. So maybe there's some of you out there, for instance, who are, you're a Gen Xer. So maybe at the beginning of life, your life with your parent wasn't the best. Maybe you were a latchkey kid and you were taking care of yourself. And we had a lot of responsibilities on ourselves, right? We had to grow up pretty fast, and maybe our parents couldn't be there in the way that we wanted them or more important, needed them to be, even if we weren't aware that that's what we needed. And being able to go through, you go through life where you go out and you do your own thing, but now you're coming to the end of their lives and they're changing because maybe they're seeing the error of their ways, so to speak, or maybe they're like wishing that life could be different, better, or more. And now you are of caregiver age, that maybe you're noticing the decline in your parents or a sibling, older siblings, and you're that caregiver. If I could have had something like this so that as I became that caregiver for both my parents, more so with my mom, but if I had had that ability to clean out all the other stuff, it would have made that end of life transition, that end of life process, so much cleaner, so much it's going to be emotional. It was emotional, but cleaner, like that. I'm not looking at this moment now through 50 years of garbage, through 50 years of clouding up schmengi on the lens, and that's really how I would like to promote this at this point. Yes, grief, because we've lost something. And by lost, it could be a loss, or it could be a death, or it could be the end of a relationship. But even to do that, to have something like this to do on your past relationships with men or women or whoever you're romantically involved with, to be able to say, okay, not therapy like who am I and how do I process, just a big look to say, oh man, I wasn't even aware I was doing that. So that's what I love about this, is that it allows you to make better relationships of those who are still alive. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. It informs you in your current choices and in your current way that you react and interact. And I think that's the biggest benefit. Aside from being able to complete a previous relationship or a previous relationship with anything or anyone, being able to complete that, it allows you to take an introspective look at yourself and how you show up. And then you have the ability to make that decision to show up differently. And you can start that now, right? You don't have to wait in your current relationships till that relationship is gone to complete something. You can complete past stuff and move forward with a current relationship in a different fashion, and allow yourself to take a different route, a different path that you might not have done had you not looked at the history and the past of your life.
Yeah, it's almost like, well, I guess that's what happens whenever we have a death. The first thing we automatically do, we're all humans, you do an inventory of that relationship. You do and and just like the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, the squeaky wheel could be either, oh my God, they're so angelic, they were perfect, of course, why would they want to have anything to do with me or whatever? Or it could be the other side, oh my God, this person did this to me like in 1925. And these are all very real things, because if we haven't dealt with them, our mind doesn't know, our heart doesn't know. So this is the great thing when we talk about things like visualization and, see yourself in a different, no, sometimes you just got to complete that relationship to where it is even today, to where it is today. And then it's like a living document, because then as you think it through, and this is what I love, the kinds of things that are coming up since I did a relationship review on my mother, it's just lightened my heart in so many ways. It's allowed me to see things in our relationship that I wasn't even able to see before. And that's why I love this. I know that this time of year is a little challenging, and I know that every year it gets better. Every year it gets easier. And this year brought up what it needed to bring up. So I think that's it, is that when we give ourselves permission to feel, to let our heart tell the story, and to be present in our emotions, they don't have to stick around because they won't want to, right? Yeah. So I know, here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Last thoughts, Miss Heather.
I would echo your sentiment about giving yourself permission. I think we all need to give ourselves permission to be the normal that we are, and our own normal, and allow ourselves to process our own emotions however we need to.
Exactly. Oh, I love you, Heather. Thank you. So Heather's going to be in Brockville, right? Is it Brockville?
This coming week. Yep.
This coming week, it's the Christmas Bazaar season. Yep. So anybody that's out in the Brockville area, check her out. Look up Heather Lacey. Again, she will be tagged in these posts. So, and I know Lazy Cat Oils, I'm just giving her a shameless plug. She's got some wonderful, I love your citrus refresher. So what I love to do is I get my Epsom salts, and depending on what it is, maybe I want the restful, what do you call that one?
Restful Repose.
The Restful Repose, which is a lavender, I need to melt kind, or the Citrus Repose, which lifts you up, right? So either way, she's got these wonderful, she makes them by hand, essential oils, and I just put those drops in my little Epsom salts. Oh, I love it. I just had one of those yesterday. So
good.
So good luck with that. And next week, we're going to be here with Aisha, and we're going to continue this kind of conversation only from a coaching standpoint. So we're going to take it, because the grief recovery method is a tool. It's a tool that can help you embrace all of your relationships in such a more holistic, and I know that word's thrown around a lot, but it really is a holistic way to help us live a more heart-centered life, because we put our heart in the center of our life. Oh, I like that one too. So good luck with next week.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
And we'll see you, and Heather will be back in 2 weeks. Yep. And thank you very much. Have a great day.